It can be viewed as a cost-saving measure that companies use all the time, hiring an independent contractor to execute a specific project. But could it end up being a move that costs more in the end? Jody Fisher served as an independent contractor for Hewlett-Packard. HP CEO Mark Hurd resigned 2 weeks ago following a company investigation into allegations of sexual harassment by Fisher. Fisher says she was refused work by HP after she rejected advances by Mark Hurd.
Well, despite how this he says, she says things ends up, most independent contractors do not contribute to a CEO's ouster. There are legal implications that companies need to consider when they seek outside help. Joining us now is Fox News anchor Greg Jarrett, who is himself an attorney, and Michael Droke, a partner at the law firm of Dorsey and Whitney. Good to see you both, guys. Greg, first to you. It's obviously cheaper to use a contract. You don't have to pay health costs and worry about pension funds. Right. But if you're sued, is it easier to win a case against a contractor or a full-time employee?
Depends on the jurisdiction, because literally there are 50 different rules for the 50 states. And then you got to toss in the federal law as well. It depends on what's in the contract and whether the contract itself with the independent contractor states what jurisdiction's law presides. So, you know, really it's hard to answer that question.
Michael, what about you? Where do you stand on that? And as we look at this specific case of HP and broaden the aperture to other companies, a lot of companies hire independent contractors because their expertise may be more specific than employees in-house, but also it's cheaper. You don't have to pay their health care and all of the other issues.
Well, yes, thanks for having me on your show. You know, at Dorsey and Whitney, we see that in down economic times, our clients often are more willing to have this kind of independent relationship with a worker, and workers, frankly, are interested in getting whatever work's available. But as was indicated earlier, the legal risks that are involved can really expand when you go outside of the jurisdictions that you're comfortable with. Some say that you have merely the kind of right to control test. Others look more deeply beyond the contract that was described earlier.
And, Greg, again, you can, if you sign a contract with an employee, if you're an employer, you can kind of paint a corner, paint a specific corner to put the employees within, outside of which they can't sue you. You can't do that with an independent contractor. Plus, there are all these ulterior motives. For example, you have FedEx contractors now suing FedEx as an ulterior motive to get a union in FedEx.
Yeah, and complicating the matter is the fact that a lot of companies now are sort of global, and they're throughout the United States. They're doing business in different states, which makes them vulnerable to the different jurisdictions and their respective laws, making it all the more dicier to be a company that hires independent contractors. So you have to have a really good lawyer who draws out and spells out all of the terms of the contract, but even then, it is not going to necessarily shield you from liability, especially in cases of sexual harassment, because that is against all public policies, and you just can't point to a contract and say, oh, that relieves me of liability.
Michael, what have you been hearing? Do you think that the HP case has sparked fear in a lot of companies, and they're revisiting their policies and trying to figure out whether they deal with independent contractors, and, as Greg puts it, making sure they have, as much as possible, an ironclad deal so that they are protected from lawsuits?
Absolutely. We're hearing from clients daily that they're interested in looking at their independent contractor status. We've even, within Dorsey and Whitney, developed a task force to assist clients in performing audits.
Hewlett-Packard case, you've developed that task force?
Well, as recently as February of this year, the Department of Labor and Treasury put together a $25 million budget to investigate worker misclassification issues. So Hewlett-Packard, the Department of Labor and Treasury, it's an issue that's burning for lots of employers, absolutely.
By the way, quick last question, Michael, because a lot of franchises are setting up in this tough economy. Are franchises considered to be independent businesses? Because historically, we all thought they were, but now some courts are saying not so, right?
That's absolutely correct. You know, one of the risks that you have anytime there's some other entity that maintains a lot of control over the way that work is performed is that the employers are going to, or the employees are going to try and push back through their technical employer and get to some other deeper pocket, which we're seeing in franchise. There was a case just yesterday involving Paychex that's been sued by employees of a mortgage company. It runs the gamut.
Michael Hurd really stirred up a hornet's nest, didn't he?
Yeah. definitely.
And let me just add that I've seen more and more judges rule that independent contractors are de facto employees. That is,
Indeed.
employees
That's a good point.
in fact. And so the contract is thrown out the window.
Greg Jarrett, Michael Droke, good to see both of you, and we know this story's not going away. Thank you.